Mahomes keeps it. Back to Bell at the right sideline. Touchdown, Kansas City.
Pat Mahomes is going to be on the flight back to Kansas City. He's going to be on ice because he was hit often.
You know, so much of the talk in this game was Breeze coming back and didn't look good early.
I think it's clearly an issue.
It's definitely an issue. You just heard Michael Leaves with our Tim Hasselbeck there on exactly what happened in the return of Drew Brees. Keyshawn J. Will has been presented by Progressive Insurance. The fellas are off. The Super Bowl champion Chris Canty is here. And speaking of off, I think it's fair to see and say Drew Brees was a little bit off yesterday. Remember, the Chiefs had a 14-0 lead yesterday before Brees completed a pass. Let that settle down for a second. The Chiefs had a 14-0 lead before Drew completed a pass. He was 0 for 6 out of the gate. It's the first time in his career he's been 0 for 5 or worse out of the gate, coming back from those 11 fractured ribs. Add to the fact that when he was out, the Saints lose to the Eagles. The Packers overtake them for the one spot a week ago. Packers win Saturday, putting more pressure on the Saints Sunday. And you know what they say about pressure and pipes. Here's Drew Brees on getting back on the field after his 4-game absence.
Being able to throw the ball, good enough. And obviously that was kind of a ramp up, from call it late last week into early this week and throughout practice. I still have a little ways to go. I'll be honest, there's some things that I'm still kind of working on, but it is what it is.
Are you 100%?
No, but I'm on my way.
I think if anybody deserves the benefit of the doubt, Chris, from bouncing back from injury, it is Drew Brees. I don't think anybody in the history of the NFL has bounced back from an injury better than he has, eventually going from not being able to pick up a ball and throwing it a yard to winning the Super Bowl with the Saints. So I certainly believe he gets the benefit of the doubt. He says he's not 100%. It's his first one back. So essentially, what did you make of it against the quality of competition they faced yesterday?
Well, he was shaking the rust off. I mean, he hadn't played football in a month, so you knew that he wasn't going to be sharp. But it was important for the Saints to get him back out there on the field. So when people have the conversation about whether or not it was a mistake by Sean Payton and does Taysom Hill give them a better chance against the Chiefs, you probably could make that argument under the circumstances. But it's not just about beating the Chiefs in week 15. This is about the Saints gearing up for a playoff run, and you want to get Drew Brees a couple of games under his belt so that when he does get to postseason play, that your quarterback is ready to go, and he's going to be the Drew Brees that we've seen, the Drew Brees that's going to walk him into the Hall of Fame 5 years from whenever he decides to stop playing. But, I mean, in terms of watching the game yesterday, yeah, it was a little bit off in terms of his overall feel, but you can understand that because he's missed so much time.
No doubt. And you're playing the best team in the NFL, and that obviously has something to do with it as well. We're asking on the Dr. Pepper Twitter feed, who do you trust the most in the NFC playoffs? It almost feels like a trick question because everyone's got their flaws. We'll get Chris's answer here in a second, but you want to weigh in, be a part of the Keyshawn J. Will and Zubin Nation on the Dr. Pepper Twitter feed. ESPN Nation presented by Dr. Pepper. It's official. College football is back. So is your favorite Dr. Pepper-loving college football town. Fansville, head to a store near you to treat your inner college football fan to a nice cold 20-ounce Dr. Pepper today. Here's the way it stands in the NFC at the moment, and we'll just throw out the candidates, and it can be anybody. The Packers remain in that one spot, although Aaron Rodgers certainly wasn't happy with the way they played on Saturday. We'll get into that a little bit later. The Saints drop another one. They're at 10-4. They're the 2 seed. Seattle is at the 3 seed. The Washington football team, by virtue of obviously somebody having to win the NFC East and host the playoff games at 4. And then the shocking loss by the Rams, the amazing comeback by the Bucs. So the Rams are at 5. The Bucs are at 6. Arizona with a win over Jalen Hurts and the Birds. They stand at 7. So your thought, who do you trust most in the NFC? Those are the 7 that are in the mix at the moment.
I trust Seattle, especially if they have a home game to start postseason action. I know their defense was awful in the first half of the regular season, but in the last month and a half, they're trending in the right direction. Carlos Dunlap, the guy they made a midseason trade for, he's having an impact in terms of being able to pressure the opposing passers. And then, of course, Jamal Adams being an impact player on every level of that defense. I think they're moving in the right direction, and they're getting healthy at the right time. Rashard Penny back in action for them. They'll get Josh Gordon back down the stretch. So they'll add some more weapons for Russ to cook with. And we'll see. We know that Russell Wilson isn't going to be the guy that's going to be the reason they lose. And so you're just hoping that the defense, which has been the sore spot on this team, can continue to show the improvement that they have. That offense will show up to the party. It's just a question of whether or not the defense will. I think they will. And out of all of the teams in the NFC, I mean, they've all got their warts. but I feel like Seattle's the team I trust the most. I picked them coming into this season to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. There's no reason for me to back off that now, especially with them in the pole position in the NFC West.
Indeed. They're in the third spot right now. They seem to have the edge over the Rams to win the division. Obviously, the Rams are the huge clunker yesterday. Keep in mind, Seattle started at 5-0, is the best start in franchise history. Then they hit the skids a little bit, as you fellas like to say. The quote-unquote second quarter of the season didn't go well. They were 1-3, but they've certainly bounced back. On the other side, we talked about it. Now, it may not have been indicative if you look at the final score yesterday between the Chiefs and the Saints, but this boggles the mind. Patrick Mahomes on the other side, 9-0 in his career against teams who entered the game with a top 5 scoring defense. If you're a casual fan, you probably think about Drew Brees and Kamara and Michael Thomas, who wasn't out there. But at the same token, the Saints defense, for those that aren't paying close attention, has been outstanding this year. And Mahomes had some struggles yesterday, but at times looked absolutely brilliant, staying perfect against the best defenses in the league in his short career.
Patrick Mahomes is so tough to defend just because he has the ability to extend plays, the second reaction plays. That's where he's surgical. Yesterday, he was 7-12 for 63 yards and 2 touchdowns on rollouts and scrambles. And when you saw the defense that the Saints were playing, they majored in a lot of cover 5, which is 2 deep, man under. You saw that Patrick Mahomes was able to elude that rush from the Saints at times, being able to get outside of the pocket on the perimeter of the defense, and he's going to put pressure on you that way because he can use his legs to pick up some yards, but he's also keeping his eyes downfield for the big play. And I think over the course of that game, that defense just wore down, especially guys on the back end, and that created just enough opportunities for Pat Mahomes and that Chiefs offense to put points on the board. That throw that Pat Mahomes made in the third quarter to Mecole Hardman in the back of the end zone, I don't know how he put that there. I mean, you're probably talking about him being the only quarterback that's capable of making that type of throw. It's unbelievable.
Real quick, just not to get too nerdy here, I want to bring up one point on Mahomes. You know, after the game, Le'Veon Bell said something that it just boggles the mind if you think about it. He said, he's better than I ever could have imagined, with Le'Veon obviously coming over from the Jets, watching him from afar, and then having the ability to see him up close and personal. That just strikes me because at the age of 25, now 26, you're in a situation where you look at him and say, got the Super Bowl, got the MVP, what more do you need to see? But then you actually bring a guy into the program from a program that is essentially the polar opposite, doesn't know how to win, is dysfunctional. You bring him right in, and the first thing he says is, even though I watch like every other fan, like Le'Veon Bell, he's amazing. He's more than I could have ever imagined, even though you imagine him to be as good as could be. That just really struck me. A guy coming in, obviously seeing his skill set, and then saying, whoa, tip of the iceberg. I had no idea this dude was like this. On the way, a win for the Jets that could lead, how could we possibly say this, to another decade of losing, killing them after their only win of the season. But it makes quite a bit of sense. We'll explain on the way. 30 for 30 podcast presents March 11th, 2020.